Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Twilight Show here on Teachers Talk Radio. I hope you are all well on this bonfire night. You may hear a few sounds from Kate's microphone and my microphone because there's fireworks going off left, right and centre, guys. So if you've come to listen to us rather before you go out to your fireworks, then we're very, very pleased to have you guys. If at any point you would like to get involved in our conversation, Kate and I, and I will introduce Kate shortly. I'm very happy to have Kate on, who's going to bring a wealth of knowledge and experience in terms of primary sector education and also experience of being a governor, which we might drill down into in terms of policies and that sort of level as well. But what we're getting into this evening, guys, is something that's been like in the back of my mind for a while, and it's student mental health, student enjoyment of school, well-being. So those are the sorts of things that we're talking about this evening, guys. So thank you for joining us for it. And if you want to get involved, as I was about to say, if you put a comment in underneath the screen where you're watching this, and we're going across YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook and X. So if you are listening live and you would like to comment on something that we're saying and give your opinion, then it will pop up on my screen, and Kate and I we'll have a little discussion about it, and it might spark some debate. It might be that we say something you disagree with and you want to hold us to account on it, or it might be something that you fundamentally agree with. But I just want to say thank you so much to Kate. I've got Kate Owbridge with me today, and as I said, I've done a little bit of homework on you, Kate, and I know that you were a primary head teacher for quite some time.
21 years.
Wow. And I think 30 years maybe in total in primary?
Yes, 32 altogether.
Okay, and then that's not a bad run at all. What's also interesting is your experience of being a governor too. And I don't know whether that will come up in our conversation today, whether we're going to talk about policies and what happens at governor level and leadership level. It's obviously something that I don't know much about. Myself being secondary, it's really interesting to have Kate on to give her thoughts and opinions on some of these things. So we're getting into mental health. It's a big one. A couple of weeks ago on this show, we were talking about teacher mental health. And now it's the turn of the students. I see an awful lot on X. A lot of parents are talking about mental health. There does seem to be a bit of a disconnect with the different stakeholders sometimes. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Kate.
Yes, yeah, I do. I think we all come at it from our own point of view. So you'll be coming out from secondary, I'll be coming out from primary, parents coming at it from parents, and those don't always align. Exactly
that. And sometimes it's the difference between sort of defending your people and maybe the need to sometimes actually listen to what other people are saying. And that can be very difficult to listen to so many voices. And I remember someone once saying on one of my shows that we get that from every single direction. So we've got the students that need us to listen to them. We've got the parents that need us to. We've got the people who manage us and our line managers and everything else. So yeah, it's not straightforward. But what I wanted to start with, Kate, the thing that kind of really struck me, I've seen a graphic, and it is a graph that shows student enjoyment. And I think it was some kind of mark out of 8 or 10 or something. And that enjoyment's quite high through most of key stage, but through most of primary school. But then where it starts to dip is year 6, and it's then like a cliff edge as we go year 6 to year 7. So generally, what do you think might be some of the things that are going going wrong, Kate, in schools that could be contributing to this mental health issue that we've got with students?
I think if I think about some of the kids that I've known recently, so in the last 10 years, so I left my previous school in the summer and I'd been there for 10 years. So by the time I went, I knew kids all the way through the secondary school. There was one secondary school in the town, most of the kids went there. So if I went to that secondary for something, a meeting, whatever, I would always see kids that I knew that had been through our school. And I think if I think about some of those children, one of the things I always wanted to do, and I know some people on social media would deplore this, but one of the things I always wanted to do as a primary teacher, as a primary head, was make sure the kids were having fun. Now, I'm not saying they weren't learning. We weren't running a holiday club, we weren't children's entertainers. But if they are enjoying what they're learning, then I think they're going to have a better chance of remembering it.
Absolutely.
But I think by the time you get into year 6, without even meaning to, teachers are like SATs. SATs is at the end of this, SATs is at the end of it. And without meaning to, they can make year 6 just a bit more serious, And I think by the time you're sort of like 9, 10, hormones are starting to kick in a little bit. Everything's starting to change. And I think kids realise actually that life's quite serious and there's some serious things you've got, and you can't just be running around the playground, skipping and having a jolly old time. I think that's part of it. And I think I've seen that all the way through my career, because there were only a couple of years when I first started before SATs came in. And I think as the years have gone on, I've seen that more and more. Depending which school you're in, depends on how much pressure is put on teachers for those SATs results, and whether it's just put on the year 6 teachers, which is wrong in my opinion, or whether it's all the way through the school. And that comes from those external factors. So all these different things are sort of impacting on these poor year 6 kids that just want to get through year 6 and go to secondary, when actually they've got this big SATs thing. And then I think they go off to secondary. And one of the things that I think happens, and this is, I'm not laying any blame on anybody's door here at all, but in year 6, they're likely to only have 2 or 3 teachers tops. Cover teacher, possibly a job share. So they can build those relationships, as they have done all the way through primary, with these people who are, they are my teacher. That's very much how we are in primary. I've been called Mrs. Bates by my nephew already. He's only in reception. I've already been called Mrs. Bates by him a few times. But I think when you've got lots and lots of teachers, it's much more difficult to build those relationships with every child. I look at you secondary teachers, I don't know how you do it. I know you do, because I've seen it happen. But I don't know how you do it, because it takes us full-time 5 days a week to, get to know the kids by October half term. So I think that's an issue. And certainly for those children who struggle with relationships, or those children who are quieter, who are shyer, who have some kind of special need, that some communication issue, that's going to be even harder. And then, of course, you're faced with all those subjects. And we all know that the more you like your teacher, the more you like that subject.
Yeah. I mean,
do believe you can like the subject, not the teacher, but I don't believe you can like the teacher, not the subject, because I believe they make you like it. And so then if you've got subjects that kids don't like, or they don't like or whatever, that's more it's like, oh, I've got a good school to take because it's geography, whereas at primary, it was the same person teaching geography. It's like, yeah, but it's just one little bit of the day. Yeah. And then I think the same thing happens, when you said about, it sort of picks up again by the time you get to sort of like year 10. Well, you've got other subjects you don't like. You should, in theory, just be doing the ones that you like.
Yeah, you've then had a little bit of a say.
Yeah, and you're a bit more grown up, and you understand a bit more how it's going to work, and you've picked what GCSEs you're going to do, and you understand that life is actually serious. And what's that book by Mira Seal? Life's not all ha ha he he. It's not. Life isn't all ha ha he he. It can get serious, and I think that's part of it. It's almost a bit like, I hope there's no children listening. I think it's all a bit like when you find out Father Christmas isn't real. It's like you've lost that forever.
Yeah,
and you can't get it back.
I'm just trying to pick apart what you said. There's so many things that you said there. I've got a bit of an echo on my microphone, which is annoying me, but so hopefully, that's a bit better. It's really interesting to see this from a primary teacher's perspective. What you say about having one teacher, obviously,
that's not always a good thing. If they're not a great teacher, that's a bloody awful thing.
Yeah, I suppose then that cuts 2 ways, doesn't it? But my feeling's always been understanding need is the real difficult one.
Yes.
Because some teachers who teach subjects like music might teach everyone in the entire school.
Yeah.
And they may only see them once a week or once a fortnight or something ridiculous
But they
like
teach them for 5 years potentially.
Yeah, and they've got to know all those students, and that's just
Yeah.
absolutely mind-blowing that to even think that that's possible. But certainly the relationships thing, I teach in an area that's fairly challenging, but there isn't an area, there isn't a job in education.
Different challenges.
But the type of students who continuity is really, really important. And unfortunately, you get schools like the one I'm at now that do struggle sometimes with retention. Though that seems to be turning around for us recently because things have really improved in the area where we are in our school. But that seems to make it all the more important that you have those relationships. And we're one of those schools where if you don't have that foundation of those relationships, as well as obviously clear expectations too, then it kind of falls apart a little bit. And I have often thought about I've seen a couple of people mention on X, because I do spend probably a bit longer than I should on X.
Don't we all?
But the thing about X is that, it can be quite toxic, but you can also learn a lot if you're prepared, if you know where to look, and if you know how to filter out the rubbish.
Yeah.
I've heard somebody saying, I won't say who it is just in case they don't want me to mention it, but I've seen the comment about bringing back a more middle school sort of model. I've sometimes thought, and I don't know, it's probably littered with problems, but could you have for some students specialist Key Stage 3 teachers that could take on some of the core and maybe some of the humanities subjects and teach across the board? I mean, things like French and music and arts may be a bit more difficult. But it does sometimes make me think in terms of that. So that's one thing I'd say. Is it? I've got a feeling that there's a school somewhere that have tried it or modelled it. I know you said something about something that you were trying, which I'll ask you about in a minute, Kate. As in, obviously, most schools have some kind of transition. I think usually now they spend a day or two, or sometimes longer, where they visit the school in year 6 or year 5. So they know it's not such a surprise when they come up. And I think
there's often more visits for children with additional needs as well, which is really helpful in smaller groups doing specific things,
So that makes me think, could we do something like that? Or maybe not across the board, but certainly for selected students who maybe need that extra support, and that the knowing about a student's needs as well, that might alleviate that. And the other thing you mentioned is, just the fact that we expect them to grow up so quickly. And the fun. I mean, and again, you're always battling against. I find that there's quite a focus at the moment on direct instruction and explicit instruction. And I'm not going to get into a debate about that. That's another thing that you can argue about. If you make a comment about it on X, then someone will come and argue with you. But my point is,
honestly, you could say something on X like, "I like motherhood and apple pie," and somebody will go, "That's terrible. Why do you like that?"
They will. You can argue about anything on there. But the thing is, if you were to say, if you're doing explicit instruction, there's a real focus, and there has been through the last, decade or so of my career, I feel that it's very much, you've got to use that time. You've got to use every moment of learning. You can't, and I can see why people say that, because we're accountable and we have a very clear job to raise attainment and outcomes for students. But my point is, if you don't have the fun that you alluded to, Kate, sometimes, and you don't have the lightheartedness and the relationships, then first of all, it's hard to have that enjoyment. Because I actually say to students, look, I really would like you to look forward to coming to my lesson. And that doesn't work for every student, of course, for different reasons, because some of the stuff I have to teach them is a bit boring to them, which is, we're all different. But my point is, if they sort of look forward to coming in, they know that I'm going to understand, and they know that even though I've got expectations, that occasionally I might say, let's do a bit of a quiz, little things like that. But that goes.
It doesn't have to be a fluffy bunny relationship. My goddaughter is 21. She's at uni now. She at secondary school only had respect for the teachers that she knew she couldn't get away with anything with. And if she knew she could get away with it, she treated them like goodness knows what and got in trouble and all sorts. But the ones that she knew, I used to say they should have her on recruitment panels because, if she knew she couldn't get away with it, then they had her and they had her forever.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah.
Different kids are the kids are just small adults, aren't we all different? Someone's going to need a little fluffy bunny, don't worry, it's all fine. And someone else needs to sit in your seat and watching you,
And sometimes we need to remember and try and see it through a student's eyes. And for secondary, before I launch in, I'm just going to mention, Kate, that this show is sponsored by Hachette Learning. And Hachette Learning are publishers of professional development books. So if anyone's watching this and thinks, I'd like a bit of easy professional development, I'd like a bit of bedtime reading, then you can go and look up Hachette Learning. And their resources support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. And you can level up your professional development today and visit www.hachettearning.com to explore the full range of titles. The other thing I just want to mention is the Bet Show. The Bet Show is a week in education from 21st to 23rd of January.
Is that time already?
Oh, I know. And that's 2026 because, guys, it is nearly 26. The Excel London, I don't know where that is, but that's where that's happening. That is the Bet Show. Immersive workshops, thought-provoking speakers, hundreds of hours of CPD, accredited content, cutting-edge technology, and unrivaled networking. There's no opportunity quite like it for education. Get your free ticket today by visiting uk.betshow.com. So that is the Bet Show in London, guys. Right, so where were we? This is the bit where I've just done the ad read.
6-7 transition. You were going to ask me about what we did for 6-7 transition.
Shall we go there then, Kate? Is that all right? So obviously,
I'm certainly not saying this is the way everybody has to do it. It's the only way to do it. I'm not doing that at all. What I'm going to say is what was something that we started, we refined, and now we've carried on with because it really works for us. And it happened because I had a head of school at the juniors who had been a secondary vice principal. And he was saying, it's so different. Year 6 is so different from year 7. So we talked to him about what was different. And we talked to some ex-pupils, mainly through siblings, about what they found difficult when they went to secondary. And we basically, when they get to the half term and of the summer term, and they've got 6-7 weeks left, we tried to turn it as much into a secondary environment as we could. So the first thing we did was we were 2 form entry, so it was easier. If you're 1 form entry or small village school, you're going to find this hard. But 2 form entry or bigger, you can normally manage it. They split the children into different groups of different subjects, gave them a timetable. So this is which room you're in, this is which teacher you're with. Okay. They stopped having to do things like line up when the bell went and stuff like that. If it was the end of playtime, they just came in and got themselves to the next place they were supposed to be. They took themselves to dinner hall at whatever time they felt they should be going. We made them take all their books home and made them bring them in only on the day as they had the lessons. And we were what we were trying to get at was these are little things that you just get used to them. Get used to them now while you're with us, or if you forget your book, it really is not going to matter. So you're used to it when you go to secondary in September. We also, our behaviour system aligned quite well already with this. As I said before, most of our kids went to the same secondary. It aligned quite well with theirs, but we changed the vocabulary for year 6s so that it was the same vocabulary. So this school that most of them went to used the terms a misdemeanor. We had to explain to him it wasn't a man called Mr. Meaner. So we would start calling things, rule infractions or whatever, we would start calling misdemeanors and doing that kind of thing. So they got used to that. And the other thing, which they hated, and so did the parents, but this came from the children themselves, the ex-pupils themselves, they said that the homework was massive. So the homework load compared to what they had with us was massive. So in that term 6, we ramped up the homework. Just so we could kind of not go, it's the end of year 6, do it you like, it's all full, it's like, this is coming, get used to it now, get used to it before you have to go, all that kind of thing. And as I say, we've refined it over the years. It's also, once they get to that point in the year, that we call them year 6+, because they're no longer year 6, but they're not quite year 7.
Okay. Yeah.
And we started doing it, it must have been before COVID, a long time since that chap worked with us. And it was him having come from secondary that opened our eyes to that issue, you know.
That's interesting.
And things like lining up outside the room before the teacher comes in, things like that, things that we knew they'd have to do when they went to their secondary, that we hadn't. We also, the only thing we didn't relent on was the mobile phones, because we had a no mobile phone policy at our school. We tried it went horribly wrong straight away, so we stopped it. That's the only thing we haven't done, is let them have those.
Okay.
But yeah, it was, we said to parents, you know, if you're going to, if you want them to walk part of the way or whatever, how are they going to be getting to secondary? Think about where you're going to collect them from now if you don't let them walk on their own, that kind of thing. Yeah, just as, I mean, obviously we're still a primary, we're not a secondary, but as many little things as we could start doing in that last half term, where it didn't matter if they forgot their maths book one day, but it might matter if they forget it in September. Those sort of operational things as you're going through, and then they would start saying, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. How am I going to cope with this? So I just can't seem to get it all in my head or whatever. We were then there to pick them up and say, right, try it like this, try it like that. In fact, one of the things that we had for one of our autistic children was, we've been talking about whether he needed a laptop or if he needed something like this. And actually what he needed was an electronic organizer. That's what he needed, to say, you need to be in this room at this time with this teacher.
Yeah.
And then he could do it because it was on the thing, you know.
Because then he had that as his provision. His adjustment.
Because it comes back to what you said before, it's about understanding what that need is, and then how do you meet that need, rather than going, oh, he's ASC, he'll need this thing. Actually, what does that child need? He might have autism, but actually every autistic child is different, so what does that one need?
This show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit hachetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles.
Teachers, have you heard of Bet UK 2026? It's the world's biggest education and technology event, and it's completely free for educators. From keynote speakers and panel sessions to CPD accredited workshops and networking, Bet UK 2026 is where educators from across the globe come together to share ideas, spark inspiration, and find solutions that fuel our mission to drive better education globally. Get your free ticket today at betshow.com.
Yeah, and it's that is just a real challenge as they come up as well, isn't it? Understanding that. I mean, we had some training yesterday on autism. It's something that, I mean, I'm not really sure if training is maybe catching up now. It hasn't always been the best, maybe, sort of training for autism and all related things, ADHD and so on. But yeah, certainly when they come up, it certainly would be very beneficial, I think, for them to have experienced what it might be like. Absolutely. So I suppose the other thing is, I mentioned seeing it through the student's eyes earlier. And sometimes we forget, I don't know, when you've got to sit and listen for 5 hours a day, you've got to sit down. The expectations we put on them, we have very short lunch breaks at secondary, and that's usually due to supervision. Perhaps it's not for the right reasons, to be honest with you. It's more to do with staffing reasons, sort of behavioural reasons. I remember someone saying to me once, well, we used to get lots of problems in the last 15 minutes of the lunch hour, so that's why we've cut lunch down to 45 minutes.
But then you've still got the last 15 minutes of a lunchtime, haven't you?
Exactly. Yes, it hasn't really taken the problem away, has it? But I mean,
it's funny you saying that, because we used to have an hour and 15 minutes, which we didn't want either. But because we were a split site with juniors at one side, infants at the other, we had to have a staggered beginning and end of the day. And it was the only way we could manage it. And it was too long. They couldn't bear it.
Absolutely.
You know, it's funny how we do these sort of things for logistics of the organisation rather than the children.
Yeah, rather than for the right reasons. So, and I don't think students move. Obviously they move between lessons at secondary, but that's a very short amount of time. You've then got the toilet issue. You've got lots of students accessing the toilet at the same time because we don't really want it. It's just a bit of a minefield. It's a bit of a minefield, to be honest, at the moment. And when you're trying to do things for the right reasons, other people don't always understand those reasons. And
That's right. That's right.
But we've got to think along those lines as well, from the students' eyes. If you're in a CPD session and you've got to sit and listen for 5 hours, how good are adults? And you mentioned earlier, students are just like adults.
Small adults, they're just big kids.
So we had a couple of comments actually, Kate. I'm just going to put. So I've got this one here. Paul Foz. Paul does occasionally pop up, so we're very happy that Paul gets involved in these things and puts some comments on. So thank you, Paul. He says they're good ideas, Kate. Interested, how many high schools did the children go to? Did most go to one in particular?
Yeah, in that school, most of them did go to one in particular. But I think, as with any headship, you go to another school, I really don't believe you can replicate what you did in the last one, because every school is different. You can take certain things, but you can't do everything exactly the same. If I'd done it in my previous school, which was in Rotherhithe and Bermondsey, and the children are scattered all over South London, I think I would probably send out some staff to find out what are the commonalities with all of those schools. Do they all have to take all their books home, or do they all have lockers, or do they all, what's their behaviour system look like, so that we could at least replicate the common things.
I suppose that in of itself, the behaviour is very different. I went to visit a school recently where they do lineups at the start of every single lesson. They have they have 3 lessons in the day, which I think are 100 minutes. They line them up before every lesson. They take their mobile phones off them in the morning, lock them away, and then they have these lineups. Whereas most schools, they wouldn't necessarily have that. I know some schools do lineups, but they may just do one in the morning. Sometimes what we do is we want them off the corridor. So we actually don't line them up in the corridor outside the classroom, because either there's not enough. Well, we do have quite a bit of corridor space, but we want them in the class, and then they do on board. So they come in and they're not being told what to do. It's expected that they should. Well, we are expecting them to behave like adults. I've got another comment here, and Dr. Wayne, again, a person who does comment. So thank you, Dr. Wayne, for your comment. He says, "Are we over-labeling stress, or just being more open about how we feel?" So when we think about,
I think it's a bit of both. Again, depending on the person, I think there's a bit of both, and I think there's dangers both ways. It's a bit like what in our family we call the Jeremy Kyle effect. So Jeremy Kyle, when he did his awful talk show with all those people, what my grandma would have called airing their dirty laundry in public. Now, back in the day, you would have been absolutely vilified for letting on to anybody that those things had happened to you. Whereas Jeremy Kyle had them on the show, and they're all parading what had happened. And it's kind of two extremes. And to me, it's the same kind of thing. Back in that day, we didn't admit to stress. We didn't say we didn't, mental health wasn't a thing unless you're in an institution. I'm talking like 100 years ago. But then are we now too open, or have we got it right? I think sometimes we go too far the other way. So yes, I think we're much better about having an awareness of how people feel, what people's needs might be. But I think for some people that goes a little bit too far, and you get I can't come to work today because I'm a mental health, or I've got mental health. That wasn't me.
Yes,
that was a friend of mine. One of her employees said that to her. I can't come into work today. I've got mental health. So I think, as with everything, the right place is probably somewhere in the middle. So
I think you're right, and I don't think it's being like. I don't think it's being harsh on anyone to say that, and we need as well to set the right example to young people too, because they're going to have days where they don't want to be at school. They're going to have days where they feel stressed and anxious, and that isn't, to some extent, a normal part of life. So it's knowing, like I say, where that line is. So yeah, that could be a very good point. We're right to talk about it, but we're not using that as a reason to avoid challenge.
Yeah, but then the other thing, of course, is you get those people that aren't open about how they feel. And you've got to try and work that out before they, something awful happens. And I'm talking employees as well as kids here, because they don't talk about it, or their family doesn't do that their culture doesn't do that. I'm always more, when something awful happens in school, and I'm, I don't know, a child has an accident or something, and and they go off in an ambulance, everyone's worried about them. You'll get those kids that'll be bawling their head off. Oh, poor old Freddie. You think you don't even like him, but anyway, poor Freddie, he's broken his leg. I'm not so much worried about that person. I'm more worried about the person in the corner that's gone very pale and isn't saying anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. So it's that checking in, and it's good that we can do that. I mean, it's always good, I think, when you hear guys of a certain age being really open about their mental health, and I think that is very healthy, to be honest. And I think obviously there's generations of people where that didn't happen, as you say.
Yes, and I think also and my brother's a serving police officer, and as was my dad, and they've been offered counselling and therapy and things for traumatic incidents since goodness knows when. But in my dad's day, what is he, 79? In my dad's day, you didn't take it up. That was frowned upon. It was offered, but you didn't do it.
No.
No. Whereas my brother is now, he's, 46, 47, something like that. It's almost frowned upon if you don't take advantage of it. And I think, well, that's one industry that's obviously starting to get it right now. How many more are going to follow? And, if we know that about adult, it's the same thing with the children again. What is on offer for them?
Yeah,
what is on offer for them? How do they access it? How do they know they need to access it? And then how do you sort out one of my phrases? How do you sort out the injured from the whingered? The ones that need your help and the ones that just want your help.
And that's exactly it. So we can obviously control what we do in school, and we've talked about what you do at the end of Key Stage 2. Could we do more at secondary level at the beginning of Key Stage 3? Could we bring back more of a middle school kind of system or similar? Could we have specialist Key Stage 3 teachers for certain students who have a particular need that it's going to be very difficult to understand? And it is difficult. I mean, I had a student, just an example, who's autistic, absolutely brilliant student. But if they're triggered, then they start to show signs that they're about to go into a meltdown. And what you've got to do is you need to know what those signs are. And if you don't react as though as that's building up to a meltdown, you're going to get a full meltdown, which will be physical. Aggression and various things like that. So it's very hard for all staff, if you have, I don't know, 10 different teachers or whatever, are they all going to, that's where the real challenge is. So it's always going to be very challenging in terms of, what we're doing. But could we, the thing is, education, someone said to me a few weeks ago, and I really like the phrase, education is like an oil tanker. It's got an enormous, I can't even say it, momentum. It's a physics, I should know being a scientist, but you can't, it's hard to change direction, it's hard to slow down. So you've got this thing where everyone's just cracking on and getting on with it.
When you do want to change direction, it takes a long time to get there.
Exactly.
It's very much like that.
It's like the Titanic avoiding the iceberg, isn't it?
It kind of needs, and this is why I don't think big education reforms ever work, because you need everybody on board, and everyone's never going to get on board. Some people are just not going to do it because it doesn't align with what they believe, or they want to do it their way, or whatever it is. They don't want to be told by somebody what's going to happen in their school. And when you get that sort of attitude, it's never going to work. And then, it's, for me, I was always what's right for my kids. And the local authority I worked for didn't like me very much because I didn't toe the line. I did when it suited the children in my school. But if it didn't suit the kids in my school, I wasn't going to sign up to it. And that's kind of like what everybody in the country is like. So
that's your role, isn't it? It's you to do the right thing for the students. We mentioned earlier about doing things for the right reasons, didn't we?
Yeah.
When you get initiatives that come from government, and I definitely don't want to be political, and I'm not talking about any one political party, but an idea will be muted, like let's do a test in year 8 for reading and maths, or let's make sure schools aren't shirking responsibility by finishing early, or
never mind what time they start.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so you get, sometimes there's populist things.
Yeah.
And there's a disconnect, and it's really frustrating. There's a disconnect between, maybe the DFE and the profession. Sometimes there's a disconnect.
And there's a disconnect between local authority schools and multi-academy trusts.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And between parents, unfortunately, between parents and schools as well. It's very hard. One thing that's harder maybe for secondary is to listen to parents. They lose the conversations at the gate, don't they? We don't see parents every day at the gate. We only speak to them if we call them, and quite often when we're calling them, it's to give them some bad news.
It's really interesting you saying that, because that's another thing that tails off at primary. You don't get infant children, key stage 1 early years children, being dropped off at the gate or being told to walk the last half mile on their own. They're all brought to school by somebody. Even if they come to breakfast club, they're coming, somebody's bringing them there. And then by the time you go through year 3, 4, 5, 6, it tails off as the children get older, and the parents, so you can walk that last bit in your own, I'll meet you in the rec, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's again, and when it's the sort of the last of a long line of children, you don't see that parent anymore. They've got no reason to come to your school every day. Whereas at secondary, it's most of them are going on their own anyway, aren't they? So you don't get that, like you say, the on the gate relationship.
Yeah, you wouldn't be seen there to come into school with your parents, would you? When you get to
Exactly.
it just doesn't happen. It's a totally different. It's totally
one of my
different.
friends tends to do it. It's one of her things she uses with her kids to get them to do what she wants. Or I'll take you to school in the car and I'll be wearing my pajamas.
In the car, yeah. So, yeah, that can be, obviously that can be a challenge. I noticed someone on X had put, I know I mentioned X a lot, but I see a lot of comments on there. One teacher who's also a parent had mentioned that secondary feels sort of cold, and it's not the same sort of warm, inviting, sort of friendly environment that primary is. And we mentioned earlier, and that's one of my topics I thought I'd mention, and that's sort of tests and exams and expectations around things like that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's much harder for secondaries to be like that. I mean, we were given that feedback by a parent probably about 8 or 9 years ago, because we had an infant site and a junior site, and then this secondary school that most of the kids went on to. What we tried to make our junior site in terms of atmosphere was something between the two. So the infants was all fluffy, woolly, all the rest of it, and then the secondary, just things like there's no carpet on the floor. It's it's lino and what have you. And then the juniors would try and make something in between. And this parent said, "Oh, the juniors it's not like the infants." No, it's not supposed to be like the infants. Actually, it's supposed to be the next step. And I suppose if we're talking about preparing students for what they do afterwards, I don't want to say the world of work, because the world's your oyster and kids can do whatever they want, given the wherewithal. But whatever that is, it's unlikely someone's going to be going, "Come along then, come into the lovely workplace, or let's come and go travelling and I'll look after you all the way around the world." It's almost like, does it have to, should it be a bit harsher? I don't know.
I don't know. It's a good question. It's a really good question. Maybe someone out there has got some thoughts on it. I mean, we're not here to solve everything. I mean, we can suggest some things. If people want to come on in the comments and say anything, then Kate and I would welcome some suggestions.
Or should it be fluffy? Should we all be a lot more fluffy?
I mean, the thing is, right, Key Stage 3, 7, 8, and 9, it should be 3 years, and that's the other thing that's a bit of bone of contention.
Yeah, it is.
But we tell that we're kind of building it up. We're talking about GCSEs. We mentioned GCSEs. We'll say things like, "Oh, in a few years you'll be doing your GCSEs." Do we need to say that? I mean, can we have 2 years, 7 and 8, of not mentioning tests, exams?
Not mentioning a reading test at the end of it.
Oh, well, yeah, and then we've got a test.
I know exactly what you mean. We had this, and we haven't, I say we, I don't work at the school anymore, but it was my most recent school. We found the last couple of years, we were getting a lot of emotional school-based avoidance in year 6. And every year, so for the last 2 academic years, and in that first academic year, myself and the head of school going, "Oh, well, we're getting to the end of the year. They'll all be gone in a few weeks, and we'll only have him to worry about in year 5. This is great. Only one episode child. We're going to put all our resources in that. It'll all be fantastic." Come October, we're another glut of these children in year 6. We're like, this is really weird. Why has this suddenly happened? And some of them, we knew that there were outside reasons for it. There were different things for it. But there was somewhere that had just happened in year 6. And we were talking about it as senior leaders. And the head of school said, "I think we're mentioning SATs too early. I think on day 1 of year 6, they come in, it's like, right, it's year 6, top of the school, house captains, residential trip, yada, 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 and SATs." And they all go, So this year, obviously I'm not there now, but this year, my head of school now has my job. And she said, "We're not going to say anything. And I saw her the other week and I said, "What happened?" She went, "Oh, they said it in the first week." That was the correlation between kids suddenly not wanting to be there anymore. And I'm not a test lover at all. I think there are better ways to do things. I wasn't very good at tests myself or exams myself. And I do think there are better ways to do it, especially with small children, especially with primary age children. But I get why the system is like it is. And there are ways to prepare children for SATs tests that don't funnel them into a test factory. But talking about them in the first week of year 6 does not help that.
No, it doesn't. No, it's not the best way to start. And I think, we're guilty of it as well, though. They get to year 9. I mean, for science, which I teach, they start to do some GCSE things in year 9. We'll say, "Oh, right, year 9's now started." You give them the little spiel, the start of year 10. Right, this is your proper into your GCSEs now. And actually, it sounds like a throwaway thing, but, maybe that is having a bit of impact. I've found students really struggle more with any sort of assessment than they ever used to. And I don't know if it's just the sort of students I teach. I mean, every school has a different context, but whenever I know I've got to give a test to like a lower ability, if we can still say lower ability, lower attaining, apologies everybody, we'll go back and edit that maybe later. A lower retaining student group, I know that it's going to be very difficult for those students and for me to get them to try sometimes. So the resilience isn't is a real problem to get them to sit and do it. And I don't know if it's psychological, and I don't know what it is. But we definitely need to think more about what we do.
I think it plays into that whole. I'm warning you all now. This is the sort of thing where my granddad would say she's opening her mouth and letting the wind blow her tongue around. So just bear with me. I think it's something that plays into their sense of self and self-worth. That was a fireworks, made me jump. And self-worth, which I think social media has a huge part to play, not just for children, but for families as a whole. In this whole way that we, sweeping generalisation, will judge people on how well something has gone. My child got 10 out of 10 in the spelling test. Ooh, like. And there's some poor soul sitting there thinking, my child got 1. My child got sent out the room because he threw a paddy and didn't want to do it. They're not going to we put our best lives on social media. People aren't going to put that stuff.
No.
If they do, they're going to put my child through a paddy because he can't access it because he's got special needs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And maybe he has got special needs, but maybe he hasn't. Or maybe
and there's definitely a lot of
this whole thing of you know, how good are you? How great is your life? How fantastic, you know. On my Instagram, if anyone really wants to be bothered to trawl through and find it, I made a cake for my staff last year, the year before, it was a while ago, and it was like a Swiss roll, and I wanted to have hearts in it. It was a special way of doing it. And the first one I did, I forgot to put the flour in or something like that, and the whole thing came out looking like a pancake. It was ridiculous, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to bloody put that on social media. Because we don't do that. We go, my fantastic cake, aren't I clever? Aren't I a wonderful baker? Well, you should make the bake off. Oh, thanks. No one goes, here's the one that was rubbish that I had to throw in the food waste bin. You know. And actually, I think if there was a bit more of that, it's okay to get it all wrong. You can bounce back. You can do better next time. You can keep trying.
Yeah.
It seems to be like, I'm rubbish at it, I'm giving up. Or you're only good you're only good enough as a person if you're good at it.
Exactly. And that was one of the things, I suppose. We've talked quite a lot about what we do in school, Kate, haven't we? There were another couple of things that we could touch upon in a bit, but you mentioned another, obviously, external influences, external to school, family influences, social media influences. We'll talk about that in a minute. I just want to quickly mention one more time, Hachette Learning. This show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, who are publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. And you can level up your professional development today and visit www.hachetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles. Sorry, I think I cut you off there. Sorry if I did that, Kate. I just thought I'd better do that. But you did touch upon sort of family and various issues like that. So is anything different happening? I mean, to be honest, throughout my career, I've been teaching 25 years nearly now. I mean, schools haven't changed beyond recognition in terms of what we do. There's obviously things we need to do differently. There's obviously different levels of need.
And more things are expected to do, but yeah.
And more expectations, definitely. But in terms of family, do you think anything's changed in the last few years, maybe post-pandemic, maybe the way people work, the way families are organised? I mean, social media really you touched upon.
Because I am not a parent. I wanted to be, but I never got to do it. So I'm not a parent. But I've got a number of friends and family that are parents, and I know, loads of people that are parents. And what I've seen over the time that I've been this is what I think is, I don't have any direct experience. I cannot comment on direct parenting experience. I can't do that. I can sympathise with parents, but I can't empathise because I've not been there. But what I think I do have is an objectivity, because I'm not coloured by my own parenting or how I parent my own children, because they don't exist. And I think that's where what I've seen is and I'm talking over generations now, where more and people have done like little TikToks on this sort of thing about how, when my parents were children, seen and not heard, we've just got through the war, just be grateful you're alive kind of a thing. And we've swung all the way through to somebody saying to me, I can't come meet you on Saturday because I've got to take my kid to football, and then I've got to take him to a party, and then we're doing something with my mum afterwards. And I'm like, what? Can't someone else take him so you can come, or something? And it's kind of like, what worries me, this is going off on a tangent now, what worries me a little bit about this is if each generation, because you go back to like my grandparents, when were they born? 1915, 1918, that sort of thing. Each generation from there on wanted more for their children than they had. And that kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going. Each generation wants more than they had. Me and my cousins were the first generation of our family to go to university, even though other people were bright enough to do it. And each generation wants more than the last. But at some point, there is no more you can give. And at that point, have we then bred a generation of people who the world revolves around and aren't bothered about giving their children more than they got, because they're the ones that are important and they're the ones that have to have everything that they want? And with the children, I swear, another 100 years will have swung back the other way and children will be seen and not heard. But it's the children seem to be far more of a pivotal part of the family. And I'm not saying that's wrong, than they were 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. You know, if I said I've got a birthday party to go to on Saturday when I was a kid, I'd be told, well, sorry, your dad's playing rugby and he's got the car.
Yeah.
That's it. Tough luck, don't get to go. Now it's like, oh, well, I wonder if we could do this. And can someone take me to the party? You know, this sort of thing. And it's.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, it feels like now people feel the need to plan activities for their kids. People feel like there's a pressure. It's very easy to sound like a certain generation of person, say, well, when I was young, I just used to go out and make my own fun and so on. But I think maybe there is something to be said for that. There are some people saying now that kids need to be bored sometimes. Yeah. We are in a society of instant gratification, aren't we?
Yes, and that's adults as well as kids.
Yeah. So it's a case of, and like you say, then the way you behave is then very much you're modeling to your kids. And the fact that people want to do lots of activities for their kids is great. You know, I think that's a brilliant thing to want to do. But like you say,
we had a child at my last school who used to struggle to come to school, used to struggle to get into school. Once you got him through the door and he had his little sulk about the fact he was there, he was normally, within 10 or 20 minutes, he was fine. And his mum tried really hard, but she struggled with parenting. She tried so hard, but she really did struggle with it. And we found the reason why I didn't want to come to school was because he was playing on his whatever device he had, Xbox, PlayStation, whatever it was, before he came to school. He didn't want to stop playing that to come to school. And she couldn't get him to stop doing it. And my caretaker used to sit in the office and go, if he was my kid, I'd do X, Y, and Z, and this, that, and the other would happen. And I'm like, yeah, but she can't do that. It's too late. He's 7 already. This is too late. You know, if she was going to parent like you're saying, she should have started that from day one, and she didn't. So what can we do now to help her and to help him so this doesn't become an ongoing issue and he's not bunking off secondary school to stay at home and play his Xbox? You know, it's
and you're battling, and it's easy to say. It is easy to blame parents, isn't it?
Of course it is.
But we can. But having said that, we can talk about what teachers need to do better when we're not having to go at teachers. And when we mention parenting, I think sometimes that's a red rag to a bull when you go on X and you talk about, because people assume, oh, that's me, and it's like, well, no, it's probably not you. You're probably a very good parent. Most parents are absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
But like you say. Those games, the console games and everything, they are designed to be ridiculously addictive. They're designed to elicit all sorts of emotions, such as fear and anger and aggression. And we could pretend that they're not having any impact on children, but of course they are. You've got the instant gratification, as you've mentioned, of social media. There's no secrets anymore. Everyone knows what everyone else is doing. Everyone's judging everyone else. Everyone feels that they're being judged, so they have to act a certain way. So the society is very different. So to some extent, it feels like society has maybe changed more than schools have.
Absolutely. I think it's the society, and parents and teachers are part of that society. You know, we're all just responding to what we live in. And I think we're all very selfish. I really do think we're all very selfish. And I think some parents are selfish through their children, if you see what I mean. They want the best for their kid because it's their kid. That's the selfish bit, if you see what I mean. But I think most people are like that. It is all about us. I could get political now and blame Mrs. Thatcher, but I won't.
Well, I don't think you'd see me strongly disagreeing with that. But I mean, but certainly it's interesting to think, it is a very different society to what it was. You sometimes, in terms of obviously the working situation of parents, most of the time both parents have to work.
Have to work. That's the key. Have to work.
And the working from home. I remember I went to we, as part of our trust, we get together and we have these CPD events a few times a year. We went to this really big event that they'd put on, and we got to choose different like workshops or things to go to. And there was a lady in, and she was from the When Adults Change. I think it was to do with the When Adults Change, which
when
is
adults change, everything changes. Which
is quite controversial, and I certainly don't want to give an opinion on it. But my point is, one of the things that came out of that was the difference now. The bit that made me think, I didn't agree with everything that was said, but the bit that made me think was when she was saying about how now people are working from home,
Yes.
There's a lot more work going on at home. The home has become, more of maybe a workplace. People are maybe working later. I don't know, like the family structure and the timetable of the day is very different.
And there was somebody, I think it might have been Martin Oliver actually. There was somebody said about a year or so ago that parents working at home was affecting attendance, and there was a big outcry on X. No, don't be so ridiculous, la la la. And actually, in our school, it really did. It really did, because before a parent would have to go to work. So I'm really sorry you've got a sniffly cold, but you're gonna have to go into school, have some Calpol, and off you go. Or you're feeling a bit under the weather, go into school. They'll ring me if you're sick because I need to go into work. And if they were sick, we'd ring them. They'd come and pick them up. Whereas now they're like, oh, well, I'm at home anyway. I'll just keep them at home.
Yeah.
And in our school, that was absolutely true. It really was true. In the olden days, it would be like a kid would be a bit reluctant to come into school and they're with their dad. I'm thinking, their dad doesn't really drop off. This bit funny. I'm saying, did everything all right? So, yeah, but I'm working at home. So I said I'd bring him in. I'm like, that's why. He wants to go home with you. Loads of stuff. Or the little boy I'm going back years now that came down going, I'm not feeling very well. I'm really not. I thought, you look fine. And I said, okay. And I did my standard thing, which would be like, go and have a glass of water and a nice quiet sit down in the corner, and we'll see who you are in 10 minutes. Because if they're ill, they're still going to be ill. If they're not, then we've forgotten about it. And he went, well, you could ring my dad. He's working at home today. No.
It's like, okay. Good effort.
They're kids. Who doesn't want some nice attention from their parent on their own without their siblings hanging around,
Yeah, and at home, I know you can do what you want. You get things done for you a bit more at home. It's very difficult. Yeah. It's very difficult. I think for me, if I'd have had, I never enjoyed school, which makes it a bit bizarre that I became a teacher, to be honest. But
I think it's one or the other. I think you become a teacher because you loved it, which was me, or you become a teacher because you hated it. You don't want other kids to go through what you went through. I really do think
try and make it better than what it was when you were there. Yeah. But I mean, I think I would have been the same if I'd have had the best part of a year, however long lockdown was. It was a significant period of time. If that had happened to me, I would have really, really struggled to go back. I mean, obviously, as a teacher, it was tough enough to go back.
Yeah. I think it affected everybody really badly.
And I can't help wondering what it would have been like had it not happened. And I know it's we'll never know, but
I've never thought of that before.
I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't really remember the world before it. I don't know. It just feels like there's been an enormous shift in so many things. More students now being home educated.
Yes.
Again, that's increasing an awful lot. Quite often we'll have parents will say, right, I'm taking them out of school. We're like, okay, all right. And within a few months they're back because they realise that's actually really, really difficult to do. But they come back and you think, okay, you're right, you're back then. But you can kind of understand it in some ways. There's also students who probably it was better for them being at home. Some students really enjoyed going online, doing their lessons online. It worked.
I know of a couple that dropped out of secondary to be home educated and are on some kind of online school that their parents buy into because they love doing that in lockdown, and they had issues in school before lockdown, loved it in lockdown online, and now that's what they do. But I think that comes back to, again, understanding the needs of the child.
Yeah, and that is a really key thing. And obviously needs have increased enormously, haven't they? The number of students on the SEND register.
Yes, yeah.
It's an incredible challenge. It's never one that's going to get any easier.
I think that's going to need that's going to be the oil tanker. That's got to do, something's got to happen there because nobody's happy. The parents aren't happy, the schools aren't happy, the kids aren't happy.
And it's something that we do need to look at it. We do certainly need to take it on board, don't we? Because like I said, even though I don't feel schools have changed an enormous amount, it might be that we now need to change something because we didn't really. How well did we adapt post-pandemic?
That's right.
it was very, very difficult to adapt, obviously, because, you know, you've got the same site, you've got the same staff. But there may be, you know, there may be alternatives, as we've touched on, in terms of the transition, in terms of how we teach them in those early years of Key Stage 3, in terms of trying to bring a bit of joy back, trying to focus on them enjoying.
Yeah.
Maybe we've become very, very, very obsessed with progress and outcomes, haven't we?
Oh, yeah.
Let's face it. And has that really worked?
Yeah.
I mean, I think teaching has improved. I think from when I started.
Yeah, I think teaching's improved. And I also think when I look at kids these days, you know, I'm talking about my goddaughters, my nephews and nieces, when they're sort of GCSE and A-level time, they are way more committed to their studies than I was and my peers were. And I kind of think, you know, if kids are knuckling down a lot more and they're getting taught better by the teachers, that's why the results are going up year on year on year. You know. But you never hear that said, you know, when the GCSE level results come out, this is what annoys me on behalf of you secondary people. Every year, people just go, oh, exams are all getting easier. They're all getting these fantastic results. Well, maybe actually kids are working harder and teachers are teaching better.
Yes.
You know, maybe
it's
that's
the same every year. Like you say, it's a headline thing, isn't it? If they improve, yeah, it's madness, isn't it? It's madness. But, you know, so we've gone over an hour now, Kate.
Oh, yeah, well, you see, I can talk.
Yeah, but that's how it is, and that's why we're here. We like to talk shop in this profession, don't we? But it's been really, really nice to have you on, Kate. I just want to thank you so much for giving up your time. I hope.
No, you're welcome. I've really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. I'm glad to hear. I haven't had too many fireworks.
It was just one big one that made me jump. That's all.
Yes, one goes just outside your window. That's when it gets you.
I'm in the garden room down the end of the garden, you see, and we're surrounded by other people's gardens and fields. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'll be the next thing. And yeah, so for anyone who's joined us, hope you enjoy your fireworks. If you're going to go out and see some fireworks later tonight, personally, I think I've got a few more bits of work to do, to be honest, and then I can finally put my feet up and relax. So thanks so much to Kate for coming on. Thank you for everyone who's tuned in and for the people who've commented too. And I will see you back here in 2 weeks' time on the Twilight Show. So good from Kate and I. Good evening.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.